looked at the Great Depression, looked at uh, conflicts within the system of the New Deal. And one of the things I think that we can see within the contest over New Deal policies and the discussion is that nobody was getting everything they wanted. Um, the New Deal was attempting to control the excesses of capitalism, of industry, and provide a pathway for workers to receive equity within the system. And on the other side, uh, workers didn't think that they were getting enough. That the New Deal wasn't really a revolution. That the system of corporatism, capitalism, and free markets, according to somebody like Hackler, were not working, and that it should have been the position of the Roosevelt administration to adjust capitalism to reconstruct the economic system, and that clearly was not happening in the New Deal, despite what a lot of people, conservatives, would say about New Deal and New Deal policies, especially as in contemporary America, many of those New Deal policies, Social Security, the National Labor Relations Act, government programs and that help people like federal unemployment are all under it. So one of the things about the New Deal was that it attempted to pick up where progressivism had stopped, because the 12 years from 1920 to 1932 were a kind of retrenchment of conservatism, and conservatives have felt that the country's mood had moved beyond conservatism towards a much more equitable system, and they attempted to create a kind of cultural backlash against progressivism. This was visible in the Red Summer, in the Red Scare of the 1920s, in the Palmer raids, in the attacks on Bolshevism and communism, the attack on unionizations as being communist or socialist, that led to much more consolidation of capitalism and free market ideologies in the 1920s, but also not just those ideologies, but policies that went back to further aiding corporations over workers. Um, and so when supply side economics demonstrated its frailty, see the times that supply side economics has been really attempted in America, every time it led to a recession or a depression. The New Deal was not a revolution. It didn't change our economic system. It compressed what was already going to happen into a shorter timeline. The government was already going to build roads and bridges and post offices and schools and libraries. It was already going to do that. It was just a matter of like how, in what kind of time frame that was going to happen, and so it just happened within that New Deal frame under the NRA, the NWA, the CWA, the PWA, like all of these works programs just did work that probably would have took the government otherwise 30 years. They just did it in 15. This demonstrated a return to progressive ideologies, which is this idea that the government can do good, that the government can help regular people. Um, uh, and so it showed it in this by helping workers unionize under the Wagner Act, under the National Labor Relations Act, that gave workers the right to unionize without the interference of corporations. That set the minimum wage, workplace safety, outlawing child labor, maximum hours, overtime pay, the formation of national holidays and paid national holidays. All of these things work to help workers, and to make work more valuable to workers. One thing that the New Deal was doing that was different here was that the New Deal was becoming much more aware of the issues and problems of minorities. And so minority inclusion within works projects, within work projects, expanded. And the Roosevelt administration was intent on creating these quota systems for minorities, They also created avenues for women to receive benefits, although this was not complete. That progressives began to become much more aware of the problem of minorities, but they did not solve the problem. And one of these is because Roosevelt was a Democrat, and the base of his political strength was in the South, and Southern white Democrats were not interested in equalizing the pay of black and white workers. And so Roosevelt was cautious throughout the New Deal not to rile his Southern base. Of course, this would happen, and it would give rise to a splinter or a Democrat group called Dixiecrats that will happen in the 1948. The New Deal also had other parts of progressivism that were visible in it, and that is the concern about families, family units, education, children. There was an advancement of the creation and building of schools. Social Security, when it was first formed, was a benefits program that helped the elderly, widows, or orphans, and the disabled. These were groups that were not taken care of before, not directly by the federal government, and now the federal government was sort of wrapping around. This was an attempt to keep families solvent, to help families maintain their family members. Also, outlawing childhood labor was there to keep children from competing with adults, but also to get students into classrooms, to schools. The New Deal also presented progressives' long desire to protect the environment. The Civilian Conservation Corps was a program that utilized young men from the ages of 17 to 25 who would go and plant trees and take care of watersheds, the degradation of soil erosion, pollution. And so progressives had this intent to use the programs to also help the environment. Many people would argue and have argued that the New Deal and the progressive programs did not overcome the Great Depression. And I think that there is some legitimacy to this argument. And the reason why it's a legitimate argument is because Roosevelt didn't really use Keynesian economics. He used a kind of quasi-Keynesian economics. But we can look at two circumstances in which Keynesian economics was used that had the desired result. One was Germany in the 1930s. Germany exited the Great Depression in 30 months, while it took the rest of the world 13 years. And what Germany did was that they accelerated Keynesian economics by building the Autobahn, railroads. They built up their military, government buildings. I mean, they just were spending money. And many people argue that this is the reason World War II happened, because Germany and Hitler were out of the Depression. They were economically solid. They had built up this military, and Britain and France were in no way prepared to counter German aggression. The other instance in which Keynesian economics is visible is in America, and that is World War II. That in World War II, the Roosevelt administration opened up the Treasury, and they used money to build munitions not only for American military, but for the European military as well, their allies. And during the 1940s, while the war was happening, there was 0% unemployment. There was capital deepening, meaning people were saving more and more money. And when the war ended, and that expansion, that 3.5, 4-year expansion of Keynesian economics to its full extent, led to the greatest economic expansion the world had ever known. And so the problem was it probably took so long because Roosevelt was hesitant to do too much because of the calls from the political right that he was a communist or socialist. And this is an eternal conflict between the economics of people who say they support free markets and capitalism, but then want to restrict workers' rights. That capitalism only works and free markets only work when it's businesses. But when workers are selling their goods, they can't set the price. No price can be set there. All right. If you need anything from me, office hours, or email me. All right. Bye.